I went on the Peru IXP in January 2010. We went for 2 weeks. So it's your first opportunity to really say, oh my God, I've had sort of 4 months of this new education. Now I actually get to apply it. Sort of, it's a real live case, and that's exactly what the IXP became. Because what we did, we went out into Peru and we talked to the people about tourism and the impact it had on their economy. So we actually got to sort of apply some market research skills and things like that. And then you have Diego there as a great resource, a Biggie professor who understands the economy, who has friends all over Peru who are economists, who work in different industries. So everything comes together.
What we had in mind was to study certain companies and certain sectors that had defied the course of natural resources, had generated very high value-added activities, and the benefits of those activities had spread relatively broadly in the local population. And we wanted to see what was key for these activities, for these companies to operate, and whether we could, or they could, replicate these experiences more broadly so that these activities became engines of growth for the whole country. When you go out there and you let the phenomena to surround you, it's hard not to learn much more intensively and with a fresher view. Okay? So it's almost like watching a movie in 3D. In the classroom, we see it in 2 dimensions. But then, once you go out there, you're surrounded by the phenomena, and the context comes for you for free.
It's about doing deals, but not about the particular finance of a deal or a particular structure. It's instead about the entire industry and the game that is being played between limited partners or investors, general partners who are sort of the managers of these funds, and then the companies that they invest in, trying to get the students to understand how deals actually happen and get done. Students have to form a team. They have to decide if they're going to be a venture capital or a private equity company. They have to assign roles within their team, and then they have to decide on a strategy, focus. Are we going to be early stage, late stage? Are we going to be tech focused? What verticals are we going to be in? And the game is going to run actually for a very long time. It's going to run for a couple of months. And each week is a year. Some teams invest in as few as 10 deals over the whole time. Others might do 50 deals. And maybe you can get your reputation up by doing things that are not necessarily good for long-run investing. Like get a quick exit. This is a classic one. You can get a quick exit and some points on the board, your reputation jumps, helps you win future deals. When they start facing it themselves, that's when they really come and say, I get it. I get it. They sit in my office and go, now I understand why that guy, exited that deal. I thought he was crazy before. He should have just, stuck with it. That was a great company, and instead he's selling after 2 years. I say, yes, and you're selling after 2 years too, aren't you? And you say, yes, I'm selling. I think a lot of students think, yeah, this is just about analyzing the numbers, seeing where there's great returns and investing. And quickly, when you start seeing the game, you realize it's not that at all. I mean, it is that. That's the fundamental building block, but you have to do so much more than just analyze a great investment. Because if that's all you do, you just lose the investment. You have to be playing the personalities. You have to be understanding your own team. You have to be understanding what your investors want to see. And only when you put that all together do you really get that's the game that's being played.
The Program for Leadership Development, PLD, is the most MBA-like of all exec programs. So what we have done as far as the structure of the program is concerned is taken each day and broken it up into 2 blocks. Each block is then broken into 2 sessions. The first session typically is a case where like the MBA class, the participants discuss the issues in the case. But in the second case, what we do is expand the scope of what gets covered, building on the case discussion. And this expansion typically happens outside the classroom. It could be in the form of individual exercises, simulations, team projects, or one-on-one interactions with other PLD participants.
So I've engaged in having them build tents blindfolded as a way to understand better managing ambiguity and managing in times of uncertainty. I've engaged in having them build little tanagram puzzles with a set of directions where they begin to understand more some of the taken for granted assumptions they've made about the directions that they don't realize until after they've completed the exercise.
The exercises outside the classroom are about putting someone in the shoes first to understand how to do it, and then reflect on how they did it, so begin to understand themselves and figure out how they can do it better over time. So that's the being part that Datar and Garvin talk about.
Part of the beer game, there's a part of it that has to do with the underlying structure of the supply chain, but there's also things that just have to do with behavioral response. Students start out with a certain amount of inventory, they have to make decisions about what to order. What the students don't know is what the consumer is ordering from the retailer. So what we have, we changed the demand pattern a bit, and all we do is raise it from, say, 6 kegs per week to 12 kegs per week. And so there's a little perturbation in the system. They say, gee, this isn't so easy. Because intellectually it seems easy, but there's also things that just have to do with behavioral response. So I don't get the order that I want, I start getting mad, I order more. I still don't get what I want, I order even more. To me, one of the values of this simulation is that if we just gave a case to students that showed this effect, they would probably think that the managers were naive, stupid maybe, and they think, I would never do this if I were in this situation. So when they actually go and do this, and then they see that they make the same decisions, perhaps even in a worse way than the managers might in a case study, then I think it really gets their attention. And at the end, when we debrief, students will say something like, well, boy, I learned that communication is really important. And we might ask, you didn't know communication was important? And they'll say, no, but it's really important.
So Authentic Leadership Development is a course about self-discovery. It is a very difficult and challenging course for many of our students. In this course, the protagonist is the student. The class is based on the premise that in order to be a leader, you need to understand yourself. I want them to put themselves in their shoes, in their own shoes. And for many of our students, we learn it's a lot easier to put yourself in someone else's shoes. The total class is approximately 60 in this course. We then break them down into 10 groups of 6. Those groups, our experiences work very, very effectively because they get to know each other very, very well. It might be the first time for many at Harvard Business School that they truly ask deep and penetrating questions of a classmate who's not a buddy of theirs, but a classmate as to who they truly are. Their first reaction might be, this is very difficult, I'm not sure, I'm confused, I don't like this. Their second reaction is, I've realized a few things about myself. And their third reaction is, how do I keep this going? I don't want to stop doing this when the semester's over. I want to do this for the rest of my life because I've learned so much about myself.
Instead of teaching them with a blackboard or teaching them with a lecture or a case discussion, we try to derive those principles of finance through student decision-making in a competitive environment. So really the Uptick software can be thought of as the backbone to that. They try in real time to trade with each other and exploit opportunities in the marketplace and manage their risks appropriately. We made sure that the simulations were based on actual historic events that had occurred using real-world data, but just disguised enough so the students didn't really know when and where they were trading. If you've ever been on a trading floor and then you come to the classroom, it does feel a little bit familiar. It has that buzz, that energy, that that anxiousness when the market is open. And so another thing we do is we require the students to manage money on behalf of their classmates. A lot of students find it very stressful when they're losing money because it's not their money they're losing, it's their classmates' money, and it's not just their grade that's going to suffer, it's actually their classmates' grades that are going to suffer. A student described the experience of receiving a margin call and having to respond very quickly or losing a lot of money, said that that's something that strikes you right in your bones, and you really just you don't forget about it for a long time.
I teach a course called Building Green Businesses. And it's part of an overall effort to accelerate the rate at which the issues surrounding green businesses enter the mainstream curriculum here at the business school. And the idea of a seminar where there would be kind of 10 formal class sessions, but then a significant project that took place in the field came out as the way to really make progress here. You must enter the course with a project framed. So a team, typically 2 to 4 students, has identified a topic that's of interest to them. They've identified an external sponsor, and they represent a cacophony of different things, the kinds of things that clever, young, ambitious people are interested in, from water issues in East Africa to how do I build a new company selling energy efficiency solutions to consumers in Northern California. Another piece of this, and Forrest identified this very early in the process, was that the field study seminar would draw a group of faculty who did not naturally work with one another. They weren't necessarily colleagues in the same unit. They didn't necessarily write cases with one another. They didn't necessarily work on the same stage of the problem. But it would bring them together and increase the rate at which they interacted with one another. The theory here is that if we all spend more time interacting with one another around issues we're interested in, we'll get more out of it. The student will get more out of it, the alumni will get more out of it, the friends of the school will get more out of it, the faculty will get more out of it, and in the end, maybe even the world will get more out of it. That remains to be proven.